I want to welcome you all back to the Family Matters podcast, here where we're talking about intentional parenting. We took a little hiatus for a little while, but we're back. So good to see everybody.
Hey, what's up?
Yes. And so last time we got together, we discussed intentional parenting and the aspect of um, discipline and how intentional parenting looks like with maybe gentle parenting or what that looks like in creating boundaries for your children. So today, I think I want to take it to another realm, something that I believe as parents we sometimes struggle with. Maybe we feel a little guilty sometimes when we address this topic. Um, but I want to talk about self care. I want to address how do we as parents, how do we uh, have self care for ourselves so that we can remain intentional in our parenting, so that our cup can stay full and we're not completely empty when it comes to being an intentional parent for our child. So that's what I want to talk about today. So we're just going to jump right in and we're going to discuss what are some ways that we can be intentional about self care as parents.
Before we go there, can we discuss why it's important that we have self-care?
Absolutely.
I know as a mom, you do feel guilty when you take time for yourself sometimes and you feel, oh, you're neglecting your family, you're neglecting your children. But if we don't take care of ourselves, then what can we give to others? That's basically, it's kind of like the on the airplane. What does the stewardess say? If there should be a drop in cabin pressure, make sure
Mhm.
you put on your oxygen mask first and then take care of those around you.
Right.
So if you're not taking care of yourself, you're not your best self and you can't give to others. And basically, it's like you can experience burnout, you can
Mhm.
get depressed, uh, you can be fatigued, you can be, I call it short and snappy over just little minute things. So it's important that we take care of ourselves so that we can take care of the others in our lives. And I just feel like that if we don't practice that, then we're shortchanging our family.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I like this conversation, and I got to admit that I'm not self care is not something that I really do very well. If I'm being honest and being transparent, I think that I have gotten the idea that if you rest too long, you're being a little lazy, or
Mm.
there's plenty of things that in the day for you to be doing, and there's probably all kinds of like um uh, old sayings and quotes that will just kind of spin in my head about just kind of keeping going. I mean, for a time, people were saying, "Hey, you sleep when you're dead," and that sounds insane, but it's a saying. I mean, people say it. Like you got to work, you got to grind, and so I don't think that I do a great job with it. And I mean, and as if I'm being transparent, as Black people, we have this space where it's like um, you have to deal with the idea that society looks at you as lazy anyhow, or maybe that um, I think from those old lazy Negro um, um, stereotypes that kind of been put out there and were put out there by slave masters, just to kind of demean and belittle Black people. I think we kind of can get in our minds to work in the other direction to kind of like
Mhm.
um, put that whole thing to rest. And so I certainly have been that person where even working throughout my work life, I worked through lunch, you
Oh,
know.
wow.
And so I was like, what am I? I'm here for work, lunch. What are you talking about? Like, matter of fact, if I could strike up a deal with you, pay me for my lunch and I'll just keep working. but um, but I think it's gone to a new level with parenthood, um, because also in my mind, uh, and some of you could, I'm sure y'all can contest to this. You 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 feel like there's plenty to do as a parent. The list doesn't go away. There's also uh, there's also that you look left and right, and there's also parents who may not be doing for their children, and you don't want to be that. Um, and then me as a man, I take on the other. Uh, I try to fight off the other stereotype of oh, okay, lazy, no good, kind of man. And I'm trying to be the opposite of that, which means, well, if I don't want to be lazy, no good, I have to always be on. And so, um, and there might be some men that could, kind of attest to that too, where it's like, okay, you're in a space where you're trying to be everything for everybody.
Right? But that's what we're talking about.
There it is.
Always having to be on
Mm-hmm.
can lead to burnout. And that can lead to other issues
Yeah.
like, sleep difficulties, health issues.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I mean, there's so many things that can happen if you don't take care of yourself.
Yeah.
And
Then nothing will be there for your kids.
you can almost, in some ways, I don't know if this is the right word, but so, I know sometimes you can almost start to resent sometimes even your kids
Yeah.
because
Mm.
you're doing 100% of the time, and then
Mm-hmm.
kids are going to be kids. So
Yeah.
there's times where they're going to be ungrateful or they don't understand the magnitude of what you're doing or giving. And so to you as a parent, it's like, wait a minute, you don't understand. I'm doing all these things. I haven't even taken a break.
Mhm.
And you
Mm-hmm.
have the nerve to have an attitude right now. Like, and it almost makes you somewhat angry. You can become angry and handle situations um, because
Mm-hmm.
you haven't stopped to think through, or you haven't had a break to just breathe, you know. Um, and I was going to say with the self care of coming from a single parent perspective,
Actually, hold that thought before you get into that, because I think you're about to get into a real good one.
mhm.
Um, should kids know and understand how much work you are putting into? I don't know if that's all bad.
There's a balance, right? Because I think
Yeah.
kids should still be kids, right? There's some things kids shouldn't have the burden of
Okay, I like that.
having to deal with. And,
Yeah.
I think so should they I think as they get older, it's like a progression, like even now, like raising a teenager, right? A solid teenager, 15, 16 years old. I think that it's important that they do understand that, okay, the world's just not going to give you everything. You have to work. I work hard for these things, for you to have these opportunities, you
Mm-hmm.
know. But then at the same time, it's like, but I still want you to be a kid. So,
Mm-hmm.
and then that it's a balance because then it's like, okay, well, then let me get a job, right? Well, you
Mm-hmm.
do have a job, right? You have a job. You go to school. That's your job, right?
You go to
Mm-hmm.
school, you make
Yeah,
great grades, you
right.
prepare yourself so that you can be successful to go
Yeah.
off to college. That's your
Right.
job.
That's your job, right? So I just think that with self care for parents, I think you have to have a balance within yourself. It's important to prioritize you so that you can create that balance for your kids so that you're not coming off and putting them in situations where they have to grow up a little faster than they normally would because you're consistently upset or talking to them
Absolutely.
about like how much this cost or you
Absolutely.
know be resenting them because you're going through these situations because you haven't taken a moment to breathe.
Absolutely. And you don't handle situations if you don't get enough sleep, if you don't have a chance to rejuvenate and just do something for yourself that you enjoy, that gives you joy, then you become an irritable, I hate to say it, resentful
Mhm.
parent. And
And
it's not
reactive.
that reactive. It's
Hmm.
not that, you're not loving your kid and you don't want to come off that way, but that's just what happens when you're tired, irritable, every little thing sets you off.
You know, when you don't have that time to yourself to reset, right? To really reset, you don't handle situations well, and you put your children in positions to where they're not able to really be kids
Yeah.
because you're having conversations or blaming them for things that aren't even in their control.
Yeah.
They shouldn't have to worry about what something cost or the fact that you have to work two jobs because of choices that you made as a parent, or your husband, and maybe he's out of town, but then maybe, or your wife travels, or you're the main parent in the home, so you have to prioritize your time because you don't have you know someone there with you all the time. So sometimes it can be really frustrating,
Wow.
when you feel like the load is on your shoulders. So we have to make sure that we're setting time aside for ourselves
Yeah.
so that we can take those moments to make sure that we're intentional parents. But that being said, I think
Uh-huh.
it's twofold, because I know a lot of parents that will say, well, listen, I don't have a moment for self-care.
Hmm.
Like, my the literal time I sit down at night is at 10:30, 11 o'clock, right? I go from school to homework to tutoring to sports to making dinner, to then I've got things to do to get ready I've got to pack lunches. I've got to make sure clothes are clean for the next day. By the
Hmm.
time I'm sitting down, it's 10:30. When would you say that I have self-care? When, and if I'm doing that Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, right? I'm making sure all these things are done. How can I have self-care for myself?
Yeah.
I feel like, and I want to get back to that part about the single parent because that's really a critical piece of this.
Hmm.
And I think self care is definitely something that has to happen for that single parent, even though it's very difficult. But going back to that parent that says, hey, I'm going Monday through Sunday or Sunday to Sunday, and when do I have time for it? That's the that's the key about self-care. You have to make time for it. You
Yeah.
have to pencil it in. You have to say, hey, maybe I'm just going to take. I remember when I was working at a job, before I would go in the mornings because I knew it was going to be a stressful environment. I would get to work. I would try to get there a little bit early so I could take 5 minutes in my car and read my devotional, play a worship song that I enjoyed that would set the tone for my day. It was just 5 minutes, but I'm telling you, it kind of gave me a different headspace before I walked into that job where I wondered, what type of people I was working with. So, so I think sometimes we have a misconception that self care has to be this huge, big old thing. Self care can be something simple as saying a prayer in the morning. It could be something simple as listening to music on the way to work, something that you enjoy. It can be getting your nails done. Just, okay, I am not going to answer my phone. For me, and in this space that we're in right now, my self care is I don't listen to the news. My my headspace won't allow me to listen to it and have peace.
Hmm.
So, I will tell you, I'm someone who watched the news 24/7, 7 days a week, and but you know what? I can't do that anymore because it brings me down. It depresses me. So self care doesn't have to be huge, big chunks of time.
And I would say, to a parent, a single parent that feels overwhelmed about self-care, it gets better, right? It gets better um, as your child gets older. But when they're young, it is really important, whether it's in the morning or whether it's in the evening, to take that 30 minutes. It could be something as simple as watching a show that you really enjoy before you go to sleep. Like you said, it could be a devotional. It could be just, maybe you found this coffee shop that you just really like.
Mhm.
And the coffee just, you know, really centers you. I know that sounds crazy, but as an educator, the 18-year-old, have to, like, Miss, did you have your coffee yet? Like, they know, like, let me get my coffee. Like, let me get myself where I need
So,
to.
Oh,
so
coffee.
what does that say if she doesn't
Yeah.
have her
Yeah, they're like,
coffee?
oh, they'll say, Miss, don't worry, Miss, we'll go get it. Don't worry. We'll get you some coffee. But it's
Mm.
just, but find something, that you enjoy. And it doesn't have to make sense to anybody else but you, as long as it's, something healthy for you, right? But just
Yeah,
something that is important to
something
you.
healthy, please.
Yeah, something healthy. But self-care is important. And even in this economy, you might not be able to get your nails done. So it could be something simple. You know, I like to color on my iPad, and just and just finding something that, it calms my nerves. I find that I can think, I can calm down. Just anything that centers you. Find something that you enjoy. It doesn't have to cost money. It doesn't have to be. It could be a walk in the park. Like you said, it could be a song. But it can't involve your kids, right? It needs to be something outside of your children. It doesn't need to be, oh, I'd like to read them a Bible story. Well, you're still pouring into your children. And I would just encourage you to take some time just for you.
So
Absolutely.
maxing out my credit card, if that
Ooh,
centers me,
no,
That's not healthy.
that's not
That,
healthy.
that's going to
That's not
create
healthy.
more
retail
problems.
therapy.
That's going to create more problems.
Right. That's
But
not
Yeah.
healthy.
but I will say this. I will say this. Okay, so to me, I love to shop, but
Hmm.
I'm very careful where I shop.
Yeah.
I shop on the sales racks after it's been marked down 2 or 3 times, and I
Hmm.
shop at secondhand shops. So I think it has to be something that you enjoy, something that helps you feel better. That is, doesn't have to be major, but something that
Hmm.
you enjoy.
Hmm.
It could be uh, trying a new recipe.
Hmm.
You know, it could be just okay doing a yoga class just for yourself. It could be reading a book, joining a book
Joining a
club,
book club.
joining
Yes.
a book club.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I came across this one scripture and I was trying to figure out what, because honestly, again, I don't do a good job with the breast thing. So I'm like having to do some research for myself and say, okay, God, like for real, like I need some help with this one because, but but this one in Jeremiah said something about uh, standing by the roads and taking the ancient path. But I caught on to how it said, if we take those ancient those paths that were laid out for us and we walk in it, we will find rest for our souls. And then at the end of that verse, it was Jeremiah 6:16. At the end of the verse, it said, "But they say we will not walk in it." And I said, why is it in like that?" But it was basically saying like, God's laid out this way for us to find rest, and we'll probably get into that a little later. Y'all, having the Sabbath and just keeping it whole, just all these things. I mean, God even rests on the seventh day. Like, he's laid out these ways for us to have rest, and he's giving us opportunities to have rest, and he's telling us it's important, and we're still saying we won't walk in it. We're not doing that. We're going to keep ourselves busy with this. We've got phones we could be on all night long. We got all these things that we can keep ourselves busy with, and I do it too. And I was like, yeah, yeah, he's right. Like there's ways in which we can find rest, and we're just not doing it. We're just not doing it.
Yeah.
So
We're not.
I don't know. I went down a rabbit hole there. I think
Well, I think self care is it's got to be a deliberate choice,
deliberate.
and I think yeah, you got to pencil it in. You got to say, and I don't know whether it's every day you do a 5 minute thing or whether it's one day out of the week you set aside. Okay, I'm going to spend these 30 minutes, for
Yeah.
myself.
Tell them about your Fridays.
Oh
Tell them
yeah.
about the Fridays. Yeah, maybe tell them about your
Well,
Fridays.
so basically, because my husband is a pastor and he spends a lot of time dealing with other people's problems and sermon preparation and meetings in the community and all of that, we decided that we decided to take one day and not let it not just let it be our day. To
Mm.
let it be our day. And so Fridays, we get up, we have a leisurely breakfast, but it's like self-care.
Yeah.
Don't deal with church work unless it's something that absolutely is an emergent. Maybe it's a family needing a funeral, or maybe it's somebody in the hospital in urgent care. That's
Mm.
different. But typically, it's something that we just do. We leisurely stroll through the day,
Yeah.
and I feel like that's self care
Yeah.
because we
And you
are
protect that day
unplugging.
too. Yeah.
Hmm?
And you try to protect that day too.
Absolutely, absolutely. We protect that day, and so that to me is self care. It's self care as a couple, and I
Mm.
definitely feel like that married couples, even though it's two of them, they still need to have their own time that each one of them, maybe, you watch the kids today, I'm going to run to the mall and just do whatever I do. Or you watch the kids and I'm going to watch this podcast or whatever I do, that type of thing. So, and I think it's important for all types of parents because parenting can be so, we can get used to just always being on for somebody else and neglecting ourselves. And I think it's harder for a single parent. I think it's harder for a single parent to practice self care because they don't have that other person to pass off to. But the one thing, as I was reading articles, and I wanted to ask Courtney about this because I know it's probably difficult. But one of the articles says, well, ask. If you need some help, ask for it. And I think that can be hard. But I think if you have a good enough friend, maybe you can. What do you think about that? If you're a single parent needing some self care, what do you think about asking?
I think it is hard to ask. Um, I think the reason why it's difficult to ask in this climate today is because everything has changed, right? Churches have changed, family structures have changed. I feel like friend circles have changed. We're not as close as we used to be. We don't spend as much time, I feel like, around people as we used to. I think it's hard sometimes maybe to ask just simply because it's never just like a one time thing, you know? You probably have already asked before because you needed, you know, someone to maybe pick them up from this, or you were a little late over here or doing that. It's like you're always asking in some capacity, and you don't want to kind of like become a burden. I could see that being like a the way that someone might look at it. But what I would say is that if you see a single parent and you know that they have their child 100% of the time, and
Mm.
you have you're a dad, you're an uncle, you're a brother, and you have your kids, say, hey, we're going to the pool. Do you mind if they come? Or
Mm.
maybe not the pool if your child can't swim, but, you know, try to support, that single mom, right? Or even like another mom, or if it's your sorority sister, or if it's, someone in your church group and you have that relationship with that parent, they may not feel comfortable asking, you know.
Mm.
But I would say that I think that we need to work on our village, right? Um, we need to work on our village of, and not just being so much centered around my family, right? My husband, my wife, our kids, we do this. But like if you have a close friend or you have a sister, you have a brother who maybe his wife passed away and you know that he's raising two girls or raising a boy and a girl or has children, see if he needs help. He may not know how to take those young ladies to go and find a bra, or their cycle may come. There are things that you need a woman for. There are things that a single mom needs a male for with her son that she can only get from another man. So I just think that it's important that as a community, we just work on, you know, pouring into those single spaces, because the only way that we get better, our community gets better, our churches get better, is if we start filling those gaps for those boys and those young ladies that have that missing parent. I was listening to a podcast and someone asked him, he said, "Sir, how do we get young men to learn how to be men if they don't have a male around?" And he said, "They won't. They have to see it. It has to be something that they see." And we're going to continuously have broken homes if these young men don't see fathers, if they don't see role models, if that brother doesn't come over and, hey, come get his nephew, if that auntie doesn't go over and go get her niece and say, hey, let me spend this time with you, let me pour into you. And I just think it's very difficult for a single mom or a single dad to reach out, just simply, and it's something that I think that as a whole they have to work on. It's not a shame thing. It's just more of, you don't want to feel as if you're a burden. And I think that that's something that holistically I think we all can work on. Is like there's a mom, and I know, hey, I know you need a break, right? You're tired. Hey, bring your kids over here. Even though I'm exhausted, right? But I know that she needs a break. Why don't you bring them over here? I made spaghetti. I made lasagna. There's plenty of food. You know, let the kids hang out, have a good time. I just think we need to just work on spending, or inviting and building that community. I think it's hard for them to ask.
Yeah,
So
yeah, that
it's
makes
not always a safe space. I'll put it that way.
yeah, yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, that makes good sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
But
know.
go
Oh,
ahead.
no, I was just gonna say, I know, I will just admit, I had never really given it much thought. I know people were single parents, but I had never given it much thought about what the need was until, your situation. And it's made me much more aware of what we need to do in certain spaces, and just how to be more, what's the word, present for other single moms, but also too grandparents.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Watching grandparents raise their kids, doing it. That's another whole group that needs
Support.
support. That needs
Absolutely.
support.
Yeah, and it probably could be very hard to know. I think that a lot of times, uh, parents in general, and then single moms as well, or single fathers too, spend a lot of time just doing the work, and a lot of times not trying to um, let any of that really be seen. They're holding up, they're holding up, they're holding up. At least the single parents that I've talked to, is that they're not really sharing a whole lot of that with a whole lot of people, but they're doing it, and they're doing it, and they're doing it, and it's magical how they can get anything, like that done. Just a number of things that have to be done in a day, and then you're doing your share, and the father share as well, or your share and your spouse, the mother share as well. Um, it's amazing, but I think that what happens is that we don't see that. We don't get to see that a lot of times. People don't get to see that because um, it's just not being it's not on public display.
Absolutely.
And so we have to really, really, like Courtney said, be more community,
Mhm.
and reach out and ask. I had whole, um, I mean, single mother. Our boys are on the same track team, um, and her boy. It took several times to be able to, like, tell her it's okay for us to take him home if you need. Like, we had to ask her, hey, do you need us to do this? Because we see you, but you got to pay attention. As a community, you got to pay attention, just to really make sure that you see people who could use the help, and then you got to try to put yourself in their shoes because they may not be showing it.
Absolutely.
You just got to put yourself in their shoes. Like, hey, she's doing it by herself. Try to imagine
Mhm.
what that looks like.
Well, and it could just be simple thing, like little things, I would say, like, because as they're trying to be an intentional parent, like, intentional parenting isn't just, about like making sure they're great academically and respectful. It also is about building them and teaching them how to be great men and great women. So like Father's Day just passed, right? There are a lot of young men that don't have fathers. Father's Day is not a safe space for them. They've never experienced a healthy Father's Day. You are taking you take them to church. The whole service is about Father's Day, and then it's just like, oh, like it's almost like, okay, I know this kid doesn't, his father's not active, or I know this young lady, Mother's Day just passed, her mother's, not necessarily active. Like, what are some ways that, hey, we're going to go bowling. Would you like to come? And just spend
Mhm.
time and, just little things like that can make a really big difference. Hey, we're going to the pool. We're just going to go spend the day over here. Like, would y'all like to come? You
Mm,
know, just being cognizant of the fact that, hey, I know that she's a single mom. I know that he's a single mom and he's consistently running all the time. No, they don't show it because they really can't show it because they don't have a moment to show it. They have to do, they have no room, to let things fall by the wayside. But it's like, hey, just offering. And I do think that we just have to be more intentional, but just recognizing that and it's almost sometimes being an intentional parent if a child has lost a parent, like as far as like a death,
mhm, mhm,
I just think we just need to be or like a grandparent like whose child isn't active. That's a whole nother situation where they've raised their children and now they've got to raise the grandchildren. I just think
mhm.
we need to just, I probably am living in another world. It's probably hard to see. I can see it, but you probably can't see it. But it's like, everyone around you is moving to the beat of their family drum and it's just like no one sees that I've had this child for 16 years, right? 12 years, 5 years, and they
Mm,
haven't asked, hey, when was the last time you just had a day to go to the spa? Or, hey, or just sit at home and just, take a breath. Or,
mhm,
I noticed that you said your child was doing this,
mhm,
or you knew that that young lady got divorced, or you knew that that young man got divorced. Have you picked up the phone and say, hey, how are you doing with that? I know it's difficult to be an intentional parent while you're trying to heal with the person you're trying to co-parent with. That's a that's difficult. You're trying to
mhm.
heal as a parent, as a person,
Mhm.
Yeah,
and you have to co-parent with the person that caused trauma, right? Or a grandparent, right? Your daughter died,
Oh my God.
and you
mm,
have to heal with your child dying, and you're raising the grandchild. I mean, we have to be intentional, you know,
yeah,
about it could be simple things, even financially,
yeah,
um, that hey, I know if it was a struggle for two parents to put this child in basketball, can you imagine how financially hard it is for one parent?
yeah, yeah.
You
And
know?
you know what? I'm gonna go ahead and share this because I thought about not really because I don't want it to be mistaken as me just kind of like celebrating something I did. But I want to share this because I think that I would like to encourage guys to do just what you said, like you
Mhm.
know, not to think of just your own. But on Father's Day, a young man was hanging with us, and
Yay! I
mom, I
love
was like,
that.
it was just really, it was organic. It wasn't like we were,
Mhm.
really trying to, but you know, we just looked over, thought about it. He was like, you want to come to the movies with us? We're gonna go see, and she was trying her best not to let it happen, because she was like, no, it's Father's Day. You don't need to be like,
Mhm,
well, go take a break, mom.
mhm.
He's just gonna be hanging with us while we go to see, the movie. And so, I'm not even gonna tell you the movie because we're not advertising for them. It was a good movie, but I think we can all do that. And I've
Mhm.
heard of men doing that too. So there are men who do it, you know. But I would say, like, for all my brothers, like, we can step up and do that. Like, we
Mhm.
get, if you got kids and you understand it, if you
One
you
more
know,
ain't gonna make that much difference.
yeah, come, like, you can
That's
do
the way I
that.
look at it. One more ain't gonna
Yeah,
make that much difference. You've already got a car full of kids.
yeah, you could do that. Like, we're going to the movies. Come on, man. I and I don't have to, display anything but, love and acceptance for the young man. And maybe that made his day. Maybe he didn't think anything of it. But on a day like Father's Day, we can do something like that.
Yeah. Yeah,
So.
absolutely. Yeah. And I think um, we all want our children, like when we drop them off at school, right? We want that. It's important that that person pour into our child. That when they're away from us, that that person is pouring in and guiding them, and and I just think that um, really, my mom is one of the first people I really saw doing that. When we were in something, she would make sure that everybody else was in something, right? When my mom took us to go pick out undergarments, my mom brought other people to go pick out undergarments too. Like, she never was, it
Pastor.
was never just Kristen and I. It was always someone else. Or if we had our cotillion dresses, went to whoever needed them, you know? It was always, giving to someone else, whether it was, I mean, I never thought in a million years that I would be a single mom, but when I look back like on my childhood, I remember even just my mom like trying to get people a washer and dryer, or making sure that we all were in the cotillion. We were Rosebuds, we did all these things, the botillion, all of the summer programs. But my mom didn't stop with just us. It was literally any child that she could make sure could have the same opportunities, you know? And I think being an intentional parent doesn't just stop with us and our children. It
Mhm.
There's so in our community there's so many kids that need us to be there for them. When I go in August, I go once. I let them know y'all get once a month. This little snack area I go once a month. Y'all, if you eat it, but they know they can go. There's women things. There's deodorant. There's food. There's all of these things that they can go and grab. But it's just like we need to work on pouring into our community so that parents can be more intentional, because even if you're married, you still need help, right? I mean, even like these grandparents, single parents, we've got teen parents. you know I had 18 parents last year
Mm. Yeah.
that needed help with little things.
Yeah.
I just think intentional parenting doesn't just stop with our children. It also, because we are Christians, and we want to give back, but it's just I think it's important that we open our eyes a little bit and think outside of just my family. And I think that when we start doing that again, our communities will thrive
Yeah.
in a better way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So one thing too before we go, I want us to make sure that we talk about some ways, some other simple ways that don't cost money that people can practice self-care.
Mhm.
I mean, I just think that is so important, especially for single parents who maybe are on a really tight budget. Also, for even couples that are on a budget in this day and age where everything is costing so much more. Let's talk about some ways that we can practice self care that doesn't have to break the bank.
I love the farmers market. And I like the farmers market because it's outside. So you're getting fresh air. You get to see, I mean, I personally like looking at all of, maybe I'm just getting old, but I like looking at all of the fruits and the vegetables. Like, they have samples. They have different A lot of times you can go there and get really good deals on like self care products, whether it's like the nice body butters or candles. And I know at the one here in Dallas, you can actually make your own candle for $5. And I love candles, but they're just to be outside and walking and seeing all of the different things. I know here in Dallas we have a food truck lane where you can go to Clyde Warren Park and there's this huge park and you can lay your blanket down and just you can stay all day. I mean, just getting the fresh air, I really think really helps your mind, and it doesn't cost anything to just go
Food
out
truck.
and take a walk. The
Food
food
truck.
truck, the food truck does, but you can bring your own food. A lot of
Okay.
people bring their own foods, their snacks, and they lay their blanket down and they just relax, you know. So, I
Okay.
mean, I enjoy that.
Well,
So,
I wanted to, I found a list of self-care tips. So
okay,
is it okay if I just read some of
yeah,
them
read
quickly?
them. Let's see.
So let's see. Create a weekly self-care schedule,
Mm,
delegate tasks and ask for help. Like that big old teenager you got, maybe he can help do some of the tasks so you'll have some free time. Oh, this one I thought was interesting. Practice daily gratitude exercises.
mhm,
Like before I go to sleep, I try to think about the good things that happened in my day that I want to thank God for. Whether it's just well, to me, a big one is God, I didn't get any bad news about anything that happened bad with my kids or my grandkids. Just daily gratitude. Oh, another one is prioritizing quality sleep each night. I know Ruben does some late night candle burning. So Ruben, I thought about you.
Mm,
Prioritizing quality sleep each night.
that's a good one.
Yeah. Engage in regular exercise routines. Now,
mm,
that is one thing that I really enjoy. And like you said, I love being outside. I mean, I can walk on a treadmill, but it's nothing like being outside, listening to the birds, breathing the fresh air, seeing the flowers. It's
mhm.
something, and that doesn't cost you anything.
Right. Especially
Uh,
if your child's in sports, use that time to just take a walk while,
Absolutely.
while you're waiting to pick them up.
I like that. I like
Let's
that.
see.
I'm writing all
This,
this stuff
oh,
down.
this one says, which learn to say no when needed.
I
Yeah.
don't have
Learn to
that
say
problem.
no. I know we have problems with that one. Uh, Set clear boundaries with others.
I want to add something to that clear boundaries. This
Mm,
is something that in the Black community, I think we've struggled with in the past, and I want to say this to someone: boundaries aren't just for you know friends and church members; they're also for family members,
Mm.
right? They're also there for any unhealthy space that is causing you not to have peace, right? Now, I don't mean like something that just made you angry. I mean like a true unhealthy relationship that over time has proven that this is not healthy for me, for my
mm,
child.
mm,
It is okay to set that boundary. You do not have to have a continuously um, tug and pull relationship just because someone is your family. Like you have to make sure that you have peace in your home so that you can be the best parent that you can be. And sometimes, those relationships, you have to allow those things to go. So
Yeah, I
mm.
think that's good.
Like that.
Let me see. I'm gonna do a
So,
couple more, and then I'm gonna be done. It says keep a journal to. I thought keep a journal to vent and reflect. I don't know if that venting, if that's gonna help you any. Oh, indulge in a favorite hobby or activity. Do something that you enjoy just for you. Connect with a supportive community. I thought about a book club. I thought about maybe online. There are all kinds of online support groups. Um, Foster positive affirmations daily. Speaking to yourself, not being so hard on yourself, giving yourself permission to, you know what? Hey, I blew that, but guess what? I'll do better next time. Giving yourself permission. Here's one which has been taboo in our community, but I think it's improving. Attend counseling or therapy sessions. It's
Mm,
okay not to always have everything covered and getting another perspective, someone else helping you navigate a situation. Treat yourself to a spa day at home. I thought about that one, but that sounds like too much work because you got to clean out your own bathtub.
I stay at home.
That's too much work.
okay.
If you're going to do a spa, at least go to a spa. Uh, create, this is one, create a peaceful home environment. And that's what I meant by turning off the news, listening to music that you love, even in your car, not listening to. And another thing I do in my car is when people get upset, I guess I must be getting old. People get upset because you're not driving 80 miles an hour. I ignore those people, let them go around me, let them blow, let them do whatever. I just turn my music up and keep it moving. So, listen to your favorite music. This is one, watch a feel good TV show or movie. I thought about Lifetime, not Lifetime,
I don't know if Lifetime is
Hallmark.
feel good.
I thought about Hallmark,
Hallmark.
Hallmark,
Mm,
because all of them, you know the plot, you know how they're going to end.
yeah.
Everybody has it's a perfect weight. They ain't got no kids. They got a perfect job. They don't, it's like you already know before it comes
It's
on.
not stressful. It's not
It's not all
It's
stressful.
the
not
drama.
stressful, but it drives
Mhm.
me crazy.
Yeah.
Anyway, guys, that's some of the list. I'm not going to go any further. You guys can
That's good. That's
add to
good.
that. It's a
I,
few more.
I got a lot of them down because I'm the one that need it more than y'all. Yeah, yeah, you all, I look like I'm stressed out. I need a haircut and everything. You all are doing a good job with self care, I'm sure. But yeah, I wrote it all down, Sister Hope. I did want to kind of go back to a point I made earlier, and then read this one scripture that I found too in my research to try to get myself figured out. Uh, and remember, I said that God even rested on the seventh day, right? Like how who are we if we don't think we need rest, right? If
Mhm.
God did it, He's trying to model it for us, as if God really needed rest. I mean, I don't believe God really needed rest. I felt like He was just trying to say, "Look what I did. It is good. My work is done. It's sufficient. And now let me show them what you do when that's it." like,
Mhm.
like it's done. I'm about to rest. You need to rest too. And well, this one song, I'm just read it so I make sure I get it right. But this is the ESV version of Psalms 127 and 2. It is vain that you rise up early and go late to rest, eating the bread of anxious toil, for he gives to his beloved sleep. He meaning God. I was like, dang, it's vain. It's
Yeah.
vain
Yeah.
to just be staying. But we do it in this culture is like, I work. Yeah, we wear it as a badge of honor.
Hmm.
But it's vain to rise up early and go late to rest. But I guess that's really what it is that, you know, um, yeah, who are we? Like God rested,
Yeah.
so should we.
Mhm.
And if we're just working and grinding and then wearing ourselves down like Courtney mentioned earlier, and then blaming it on our kids that we wore ourselves down when they're looking at us like, I didn't make you stay up late at night.
And they gonna say it too.
Yeah, so I mean, I think
Mhm.
it is something that we really really have to come to terms with. And so I read that and I was like, okay, I'm gonna have to get my act together because I am acting as if I need to do it all and I got it all, and as if I can do it all. but I'm gonna have to rethink how I'm doing this thing.
Yeah. Because remember, our kids are watching us. We
Mm-hmm.
have to, and to me, by practicing self-care, we are letting our kids know that it's okay to say no. It is okay not to do everything. It is okay to take some time for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
We have to understand we are, it's just like Courtney was talking about the kid that grows up with no father in the home. How does he learn how to be a father?
Mm-hmm.
Or how does a kid learn how to practice self-care
Mm-hmm.
if we're not modeling and showing them the importance of it?
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And it's
Pray for
and
me.
you're gonna get to a point where, you do get overwhelmed. And so then okay, let me take a step back. I'm at that moment, you know, I need to take a moment for myself so that I'm not blowing up, you know, or creating a toxic environment. Because it will eventually come to a head, and it gets ugly. And then it's at a place where it's like, man, it didn't have to get here if I had just taken a moment and just
Mm-hmm.
had a breather, or if I had just walked away, or if I had just, like you all asked before, reached out and said, hey, do you mind taking him for a day or two so that I can just breathe, or
Yeah,
her.
grandmas, we
So.
appreciate y'all. Thank you,
Wait,
grandma, for the help.
They said these new grandmas are shutting the door.
because grandmas want to be grandmas. But I will say this, especially this has really taught me especially in children's ministry, that you know what? Asking a single mom who has been on all week, worked a job, Sunday is their only day to just kind of breathe and enjoy worship. And it has helped me to understand that, you know what? I don't have to ask that person to volunteer. Maybe they don't need to volunteer. Maybe they need to just go and do some self care in the sanctuary.
Mhm.
And I've learned that through the years that, you know what? Every parent, every mom, especially a single mom, doesn't need to volunteer. She might just need that time. This may be the only time all week that she has without her kid. So
Mm,
Mm. Yeah. I mean, I think we've touched on some really great
yeah.
um, conversations today.
Don't
With
let it rest here.
Yeah,
We don't.
yeah, yeah. Because I mean, because we could keep going on and on and on. I do think that
I got my list
yeah,
of another all kinds of things,
yeah.
self-care tips.
I think I hope that we can maybe work a little bit more on the grandparents, because I do feel that um, there are a lot more grandparents raising young kids
Yeah.
nowadays.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of young people being raised by their grandparents or an auntie or an uncle, and I hope that they also understand that self care is something that they really need as well, because it really is saying that your body is a temple of God, and you giving yourself that rest and that care. You're honoring yourself. You're honoring God. You're honoring, you know. That relationship that you want to have with him, saying, God, I can't handle all this on my own. Let me take a moment and just breathe. And so I'm just hoping that someone learned something today, was able to pull from something today. And these can be touchy topics, talking about, I mean, some parents might really not be okay with a kid doing what they did with you, Ruben, and inviting them to hang out with you on Father's Day. And I think that's amazing. I mean, I come from a different perspective on it, but I think that that's something that really speaks to your heart and your spirit. And it's
I
very
think it's family.
selfless. Yeah,
It
your
speaks
family, your
to your
wife,
family,
all of it.
your
Absolutely.
wife, your boys, that
Hmm.
they would welcome that.
Yeah.
That
I
says
think, I think, I mean, I know you didn't want, a lot of hoopla around it, but I mean, I think to me, that's something that I think is probably one of the highlights of what we talked about tonight, because there are kids that need that. And for your family to say, hey, that's fine, that speaks volumes of the young men that you're raising, and the home environment that you and Lovely have for a young man to come and spend time with you. So I think that's really awesome. I want to
Praise
say that.
God. Praise God. Praise
Yeah.
God.
Uh,
Amen.
yeah.
Yeah.
So But anybody else have any words on intentional parenting with spending time, intentional time with yourself, or we're gonna wrap it up
Nope. I
here?
think it's time to go get some self care.
Well, I do want to say this thing about grandparenting. Um, that is a big, it is a big area where grandparents are raising kids and they're trying to navigate this balance of being a grandparent and being a parent again. And I think one thing that I read about that topic was that those grandparents need to understand that they being a grandparent at 70 is not going to be the same as being a grandparent when they were 30. And
Mm,
so they have to understand that they may have to take more naps. They may have to call in some reinforcements.
Mhm.
Uh, that they might need to develop a community where, hey, you keep the kids today so we can rest and do something we want to do as a fun time, and then we'll keep the kids next week. And they're going to have to be more creative.
mm,
Uh, and then understanding that sometimes busyness, especially with young parents and busyness, they can just take over your lives. And maybe it's okay to just do one sport this semester as opposed to trying to do three sports, that type of thing. So that is something that we hopefully we can spend some time at a later date talking more about just grandparenting. It's
I,
becoming,
I
it is
think
a
we
huge thing.
I think we should because I don't think that you can, if you're going to be a parent and you're a grandparent, I don't think you can be a grandparent. I think you have to be a parent. And that's unfortunately that's hard
Yes.
for the
And it's a
grandparent.
loss. And it's a loss too,
That's
because
right. They
grandparents'
lose that.
job is supposed to be to spoil and have fun and give them back to their parents.
Right.
So,
You miss that. And that, and it's, but I think for the child to be successful from what they need. And so we definitely maybe that'll be our topic next time is grandparents and how can you be intentional. Can you be an intentional grandparent and parent at the same time? You
mm.
know, what are some resources? What are some ways that you can, or what, so maybe that'll be something that we can touch on the next time. Grandparenting.
Looking forward to it.
Intentional grandparenting parents.
well, I will say I'm reading a great book. It's called I think it's called How to Be a Great Grandparent or something like that, but it has some really good really good ideas and
Mm,
Mhm.
really good
Yeah.
thoughts about just how to be, even whether you're a grandparent that's parenting a second time or whether you're just a grandparent.
Hmm.
You know,
mm,
it talks about it covers so many different arenas of
mm.
grandparenting. That would be a
Yeah,
really
that'll be a good topic that we'll touch on next time.
I
Okay.
look forward to it. I look forward to it.
Yes. Well, thank you guys. I'm excited. I think we talked on some great things about intentional parenting, being intentional about your time and your self care, specifically for people that don't have as much support, single parents or some grandparents or, a single father. And so I think that we had some great points. And I hope that next time we can talk about grandparenting and talk about how they can be intentional parents too. So thank you guys for coming to the podcast. See ya.
Bye bye.
Bye.